Quiz question. Which Greenlandic word can be translated as "there are so many mountains"? Is it A?
Qaaqqaaqqaa.
Or is it B?
Qaqqaqaqaaq.
Watch this video till the end to find out. In part 1 of this video series, we saw that letters at the end of a word may disappear when suffixes are added. Upon closer inspection, even more sound changes can be identified in this example. For instance, the first affix that was attached to the word root is in fact usaq, but instead of a U, we actually see an A in this position. And why do we see an E instead of an I here? In order to understand this, we need to have a look at the phonology of the Greenlandic language, which is part 2 of this video series. Let's get started. The Greenlandic alphabet consists of 18 letters, although some additional letters occur in loanwords, mainly from Danish. There's generally only one way to pronounce each letter, making Greenlandic spelling largely phonetic. However, some additional sounds exist that are represented by a combination of two letters, such as n, ch, sh, and ch, and a few more. Rather than going over each single sound that exists in Greenlandic, I would like to focus on two sounds that I think are the most characteristic for Greenlandic, q and sh. The q sound is a bit similar to k as in cat, but it is pronounced more in the back of your throat. This is also where, for example, Dutch people pronounce the ch sound, as in graag. Now give it a try yourself by saying thank you in Greenlandic, which is goeienacht. Goeienacht. Try it. Alright, the sh sound may seem tricky at first, but here's how to do it. Step 1. Put your tongue in position for pronouncing l, as in language. Step 2. Try to say sh, as in sheep, but while doing so, you must keep your tongue in the position for pronouncing l. Sh, sh. Let's practice by saying "you're welcome" in Greenlandic. Ishisu. Ishisu. Try it. So far, we only looked at a few individual sounds in Greenlandic, but how about syllables? All Greenlandic syllables have the following structure, where C stands for consonant and V stands for vowel. Vowels and consonants in brackets are optional. The number 1 indicates that two adjacent vowels will only belong to the same syllable if they are identical, simply resulting in a lengthening of the vowel sound. So, for example, the word uia, meaning her husband, contains 3 distinct short vowels that each correspond to a syllable. Uia. The word nuuk, which is the capital of Greenland, contains 1 long vowel with 2 surrounding consonants, so it only has 1 syllable. Nuuk. Note that Greenlandic also has short and long consonants. Unlike English and many other languages, Greenlandic doesn't have any diphthongs. A diphthong is also called a gliding sound, because you essentially glide from one vowel sound to another within 1 syllable. Many English words, like new or even no, contain a diphthong. Estonian is a language having as much as 36 different diphthongs, which is just one of the reasons why I like Estonian so much. The syllable structure of Greenlandic doesn't allow any clusters of more than 2 consonants to exist, because syllables may start or end with only a single consonant, meaning that 2 vowels can be separated by 2 consonants at most. The English word street starts with a cluster of 3 different consonants, which would simply be impossible in Greenlandic. In short, the syllable structure of Greenlandic allows certain combinations of sounds, whereas it doesn't allow others. This concept is also known as phonotactics. Let's consider what happens if we attach the affix ngo, to become, to the word root inuk, meaning human. Note that the affix ngo actually starts with a double consonant, even though the spelling uses 3 letters for some reason. If we would directly add this suffix to inuk, this would result in a cluster of 3 consonants, which is not possible. Therefore, all morphemes that start with a double consonant will delete any preceding consonant. In this case, the K gets deleted so that the resulting word is inungorput, meaning they were born. Some morphemes delete any preceding consonant regardless of phonotactics. In such case, we are dealing with Sandhi, or joining rules, that are specific for each morpheme and have to be memorized. The affix u, to be, is an example of an affix that always deletes the preceding consonant, just because. If we attach this suffix u to the word root inuk, the K also disappears, and the final word becomes inuvunge, I live. Dictionaries often indicate whether a suffix deletes the preceding consonant by using a minus sign, as you can see with both of these affixes here. Now let's take a closer look at Greenlandic vowels. Greenlandic has a so-called 3-vowel system. This means that all vowel sounds can be described by just 3 vowels: e, I, and u. They are often called close vowels, because they require the tongue to be positioned relatively close to the roof of the mouth. Each close vowel also has a more open equivalent, where the tongue is positioned farther away from the roof of the mouth. These are a, and o. The only time you pronounce an open vowel instead of its close counterpart is whenever it is followed by an uvular sound, so either a q or a r in Greenlandic. Likewise, when an uvular sound disappears, any preceding open vowel has to become a closed vowel again. Take for example the word dog, qimmiq, and make it plural by replacing the word final Q by a T. We then get qimmit, so the open vowel is now pronounced as the closed vowel I. This rule of thumb potentially allows us to write anything in Greenlandic just using the 3 closed vowels. We only have to remember their pronunciation becomes more open in front of uvular sounds. This is also why we can write ngor instead of ngor. We know how to pronounce the vowel regardless of the exact spelling. This rule is sometimes referred to as the vowel rule and can be considered the 8th rule you need to know in order to produce Greenlandic words with their correct spelling and pronunciation. Let's have a look at some other sound rules. Take for example the A rule, which can be considered the 5th sound rule. It states that any vowel following an A will also become an A. This rule explains why the U in usaq turned into an A when we attached it to the word root oqaq. Note that usaq also deletes the final q of the word root because of Sandhi. Another very important rule is the consonant rule. It states that if 2 different consonants end up next to each other, the first consonant will become the same as the second. This process is also known as assimilation, or more exactly, regressive assimilation. Take for example the following morphemes. Nuuk is the capital of Greenland, and Miok means inhabitant. Combining them gives us Nuumiok, meaning inhabitant of Nuuk. Note that the double M in this word represents a long consonant sound. Because of assimilation, no 2 different consonant sounds can ever occur next to each other in Greenlandic words. One of the few exceptions is when the first consonant is a Q, which then becomes an R. For example, if we combine Umenak with Miok, we get Umenamiok, inhabitant of Umenak. Time for a fun fact. Did you know there is a connection between the Greenlandic word issu, meaning house, and the English word igloo? To understand this, we need to look at the etymology of this word and a couple of sound rules. The origin of the word igloo can be traced back all the way to the ancient Proto-Eskimo language, which eventually gave rise to all Eskimo languages that are spoken today. Some linguists think the Proto-Eskimo word for igloo might have sounded like unglu, which became uglu in Proto-Inuit. In Inuktitut, this word is pronounced as igloo, which is the word that got borrowed into English. So how did the Greenlandic pronunciation change into issu? Well, as I just showed you, Greenlandic has the consonant rule, which causes assimilation of the G, turning it into an L. Still, we don't pronounce this word as illu, but as illu. In fact, there's another sound rule, known as the fricative rule, which states that a doubling of certain consonants, such as the L, will turn them into devoiced fricatives. In this case, the L becomes a lateral fricative sound like S, which is very typical for Greenlandic. Alright, let's have a look at one of the words from the beginning. Interestingly enough, this is actually a sentence word consisting of 5 different morphemes fused together. However, it is quite difficult to recognize these morphemes within the word itself, because the sound rules have already been applied. So let's try to reconstruct the formation of this word by ourselves. First, we need to know the right order of morphemes, which is as follows. If we simply glue them together, the resulting word looks quite different from what we are supposed to get, which looks like this. Let's consider all of the sound changes that need to happen to go from this to this. The first step is always to apply Phonotactics and Sandhi, or joining rules for combining morphemes. The suffixes qa and q always delete any preceding consonant, so let's get rid of those. Also, the letter V is deleted because it follows a schwa sound, which is often represented by this weird upside down letter E or just a regular E. This is a very specific rule that only applies to a small number of suffixes ending on a schwa and just needs to be memorized. Sorry about that. Now that we have applied all of the relevant joining rules, we can start applying the sound rules. First comes the rule that any schwa that is followed by a vowel turns into an A. Next, we need to apply the A rule that I showed you before, because now the U is preceded by an A, so it has to become an A as well. And that gives us the final form of this word. Whew, we finally made it. In case you are a little bit overwhelmed by all of these different rules, don't worry. For now, the most important is that you know they exist, rather than knowing them by heart. They may help you to understand why a single morpheme may often appear to have many different forms. If you want to learn more about the sound rules in Greenlandic, I highly recommend you to read Chapter 3 of an Introduction to West Greenlandic by Stian. You can find a link in the description, so be sure to check it out. So, what does the word Qaaqqaqaqaaq actually mean? Literally, it means mountain, have, very, indicative mood, third person singular. The affix meaning have can also mean there is or there are in an impersonal sense. In this case, there are mountains. The affix meaning very is often used as an intensifier of a statement, so the full translation becomes there are so many mountains. And this is also the answer to the quiz question from the beginning. Allow me to make a quick comparison between Greenlandic, a polysynthetic language, and Finnish, an agglutinative language. In Greenlandic, individual morphemes are sometimes hard to identify in words due to the deletion, fusion, or even insertion of sounds. In agglutinative languages, such as Finnish, individual morphemes tend to remain more distinct. For example, when joining the following morphemes, we can simply glue them together to obtain the word talossaniko, which means in my house, ? Or literally, house, inessive case, first person singular possessor, question particle. I think this is quite a major difference between polysynthetic and agglutinative languages. Also, note that agglutinative languages often make much less use of noun incorporation to form complex sentence words, like the Greenlandic word we have here. Now we are left with only one more question. How about the other word from the beginning, Qaaqqaaqqaa? Well, that's simply an onomatopoeia for the sounds made by ravens, consisting of qa repeated 3 times. I'm not sure how accurate this onomatopoeia really is, though, because the ravens in Nuuk, at least the ones that I recorded, sounded more like this. Yep, that's a crazy bird making crazy sounds. Time to wrap up this video about the phonology of Greenlandic. Greenlandic has a relatively simple syllable structure that looks as follows. It has a 3-vowel system consisting of E, I and U. When joining morphemes together, you need to consider the syllable structure, or phonotactics, as well as more specific rules for joining morphemes, or Sandhi. The next step is then to apply the sound rules to obtain the final form of a word. All of these sound changes may obscure morpheme boundaries, which can make it really difficult to identify individual morphemes within a word. Alright, here's what you can expect to see in part 3 of this video series. Until now, we have only looked at individual words. However, in order to make simple sentences, like the hunter shoots the bear, we need to know how to make clear in Greenlandic that it is the hunter who shoots the bear and not the bear who shoots the hunter. This may seem trivial, but languages use many different ways to express these kind of relationships. In part 3, we are going to look at sentence structure, or the syntax of the Greenlandic language. Thank you for watching and see you later. There's actually one more thing. You may have noticed that it took quite a while before I posted this second video on my channel. For personal reasons, it has been a bit difficult to continue this project, and unfortunately, I can't make any promises regarding the other videos, so I would like to apologize in advance. Anyway, it was a great pleasure to read all of your positive comments on my first video, and I hope you like this one too. Thank you very much, and have fun exploring the amazing grammar of the Greenlandic language.